If I say the word for enemy, it comes out magiai.
I see. Same word, different pitch.
That's right.
Does anyone, aside from you, any English speaker, fluent or have a good grip on their language?
My former wife Karen speaks the language fairly well, and the missionary who worked there just before us, I still stay in contact with him, and he remembers quite a bit of the language. But in terms of an analysis of the grammar and how the sentences work together, there's myself and my former wife who has done a lot of analysis on her own.
How did you begin then your mission, so to speak? How did you begin, and what happened when you began trying to communicate concepts of God and of a religious faith?
Well, first of all, after I felt that I knew the language well enough to start telling them about Jesus, I would say, Jesus made me happy, or I might tell them a story about how I converted, what was important to me in my conversion. I told them that, I used to drink a lot and now I don't drink, and try to converse with them in ways that might make Christianity sound appealing. But then they would ask me questions. Well, Jesus, let's see, is he brown like us or is he white like you? And I would say, well, I don't really know. I mean, I've never seen him. Some people say he was brown. You've never seen him? Well, what did your father say? Did your father see him? No. So you don't know anyone who's seen him? No. Well, then why are you telling us about him?
Which could do your head in pretty quickly if you're a missionary.
Yeah.
What was it about their worldview that really did start to do your head in, to use a colloquial term, that really did start, I guess, to erode your certainty about your own faith?
Well, there were a couple of things. First of all, as they began to demand more evidence than I had, I realized that in terms of just objective knowledge about the world, I didn't have as much evidence as I had once thought I had for my beliefs. But more important than that to me was just to look at the Piraha and see the quality of their inner lives and the way that they related to the world around them. I mean, they're certainly not the most, the only happy people in the world, but to give an example, recently I took a team of psychologists from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and after being there for about a week, they said, these must be the happiest people in the world. And I said, well, how would you measure that? And they said, well, we just measure the amount of time they spend smiling and laughing and compare that to any other group. And so although that might not be the ultimate measure of happiness, that was something that had struck me many, many years ago, is how contented they seemed with their lives and how little they seemed to worry and how they took things in stride. And so all the qualities that I thought I had to tell them that Christianity could give them, they actually had better than I did.
They didn't have the problems that you thought you would be solving.
That's right. They didn't have the problems. All the solutions to the problems that I thought I was offering to them, they already had. So they were living a life even better than the life I thought I had come to offer them.
No competition, no concept of competition in their lives?
No, it's fascinating competition. I remember one time I decided I would try to introduce some new games there. Because they like to do novel things from time to time just to see what it's like. So I tried to get a foot race going. And I got people to start running, but then the person who was in the lead would stop and wait for everyone else because no one wanted to go without the others. And that's pretty symbolic of their entire concept of working together rather than competing with one another.
And any signs of violence or aggressiveness in their societies?
Well, in their day-to-day lives, none. In fact, if there's a sin among the Piraha, it's to show anger, to raise your voice, to yell at someone else, and certainly you would never strike someone else. But having said that, in every society there are always exceptions to the rule. So I talk in the book about a couple of cases of violence where the people did get violent towards me, and once where a young teenager actually killed an outsider. But these are aberrations in the society. They're things that have, maybe 3 incidents of this in the last 30 years.
As a result of intervention, outside intervention.
That's right. It almost always has to do with outsiders.
They have no concept of depression either, I think he writes. Does that mean what? That no one gets sad? Things must happen that make people sad.
Oh, sure. They get sad when someone dies. They get sad. I've seen women cry all night long because their favorite dog died. So they get sad, but they don't get depressed for days or weeks or months where they can't get out of bed and they can't do this or they can't do that. Their lives go on, and they don't show lingering effects. So I mean, somebody might cry today because their baby died, and tomorrow they're back to life as normal. What goes on inside them, I can't completely evaluate. I'm sure that they feel sorrow from day to day when they think about that, but they don't dwell on the past, even the past that they've witnessed. And life has each day has its own challenges.
Which is a fundamental characteristic you found of them. They literally have no collective history past a generation.
That's right. If you can only talk about by cultural value, this is not that they cognitively are incapable of thinking about the past, but the cultural value is you don't talk about things you haven't seen or that haven't been seen by witnesses. Well, then you can't have a creation myth, because that goes beyond any eyewitness. And I remember, months of frustration trying to get creation myths. What was the world like before there were trees? Who made the trees? Who made the water? And those questions just don't make sense. They said, things are always like this. There are trees. And so the entire concept that the world was fundamentally different or didn't exist and then somebody brought it into being is foreign to them.
Which is very rare in any society.
It's extremely rare. In fact, I don't know of another society that lacks all stories of the past and all stories of creation in quite the same way that the Piraha do. And some people have suggested to me that maybe this means their mental life is somehow inferior, but it's really not. They know the jungle around them extremely well, the species of all the flora and fauna around them, and they have a very rich life talking about animal behavior and things that they see and jokes on each other, and they talk all the time.
Does that apply also to the future then? They don't have the need to explain or to ease or to somehow massage what the future may hold?
That's right. I mean, you will hear people say, I'm going to go fish tomorrow, and you might even hear them say, when the water comes back up, which might be 6 months away, I'm going to go down and see my brother who lives downriver. But these are all things based on their experience, things they will do, things that they have done in the past and seen other people do. But they don't say that, in many, many waters from now, the Piraha might live in the cities like others, because they don't talk about things that they don't have any evidence for, and they don't have any evidence for the distant future like that. So
and that
you don't
includes,
hear any.
Presumably, what happens after death. For you as a missionary, again, how difficult was it to try and communicate that concept?
Well, I found out that the word for sky is exactly the same as the word for ground. They're both migi, and when I figured out what that meant, it means that the world is the universe is sort of layered like a layer cake. So there's a barrier below us and a barrier above us. And I tried to explain to them that there was an up high father, up high parent, and when we died, we would go up there to live with that person. And I say, so what do you say happens when people die? They're dead. They're in the ground. They didn't. The entire concept of why would you even need to talk about that was sort of the reaction that I got from them.
How much then, perhaps? I think they do believe in spirits, though. They do have some spiritual concepts or realms that are part of their culture.
That's right. And some people have seen an inconsistency in my claim that there's no religion, and yet at the same time they believe in spirits. But spirits is partially a bad translation, for want of a better word. I mean, what they see are entities that look like humans or look like animals, but which really aren't, and they have properties that we don't. And so they believe that if you see a real white person in the jungle, this person doesn't have blood. In fact, it's a different kind of creature, and they believe that they see these things. And in the prologue to the book, I talk about a case where the entire village was pointing to a spirit, and I was there, and I saw them pointing, and I saw heard what they were saying about him, but I didn't see him, see the spirit. So they do believe in entities they can see, but they don't believe in spirits they can't see.
And is it perhaps this then that erodes over time, or erodes your spiritual beliefs? What happened when that happened? Your whole life, your family's there, you're there on this mission. What happens when you, over time, are losing your belief?
Well, it was in about the mid-1980s that I began to realize that my faith was starting to erode, that what I was seeing was changing me profoundly, and that I couldn't believe in these supernatural forces and entities and places anymore. But I kept praying that I would get more faith. I kept hoping that my faith would come back, and more than anything else, I didn't talk to anyone about this. I didn't want anyone. I mean, I'm being supported by churches as a missionary, as a leader of the church. My family is there